and now they see the schedule, and some of these idiots out here now on radio after the schedule came out, oh, the Eagles are going to win 12 games. Are you on drugs? They're not going to win 12 games.
And here he is with us now, our dear friend Howard Eskin from WIP in Philadelphia, and also covering the Eagles and everything going on in Philly. Howard, thanks so much for doing this, brother.
No problem, Dan. How are you today?
Oh, good. We had Frank Reich on with us the other day, Howard, and I asked him a question. I go, who made the call to start the trade for Carson Wentz? And tell me if you're shocked or not that the owner called. And it was Jeffrey Loria, according to Frank. And we did that interview with him. We posted it. And he said that the owner called. And then right after the owner called, then Howie Roseman called. What'd you make of that?
I'm a little surprised. The owner gets involved. Jeffrey Lurie does get involved. But I'm a little surprised that he would make the call, because the general manager really has to sign off. Well, he has to sign off on what the deal is going to be. I'm a little surprised that he made the call, but I'm not surprised that they traded him. And I have different reasons why they traded him. I know people have heard all these different things about Carson Wentz, and he's not liked by people in the locker room. How many guys in the locker room love each other? Everybody loves each other 100%. It doesn't work. It's America. It's human nature. So that doesn't happen. I haven't found, and I've talked to players since all this stuff came out. One of them, and I'll say, was Chris Long, and he doesn't know what people are talking about. And I've talked to other people, and he said he was fine. Was he different? I don't know that he was different, but he just wasn't playing well enough. But here's my belief on why the Eagles wanted to try to move on. You, in today's world of the NFL, I don't think, and maybe they share the same feeling, you can win with a quarterback making really gigantic money, because then you don't have enough money for all the other players. Like Kansas City got there, even though they paid Patrick Mahomes, because they're not paying him that big money yet. When you look at the players that are getting the big money, when they do, I don't know when Dak Prescott gets that money, but the Cowboys are done once he gets that money, because it's just not going to work. If the Buffalo Bills sign Josh Allen, which they will do, they're going to have to win before you get to that point, or you're going to have to be better than what the average is of successful picks in the draft. A good average is around, from what I understand, like 52 to 54%. If you're not at least at that average, you got no chance, because then you can pay players cheap while they're on their first cheaper while they're on their first contract. So I think because the Eagles were so tapped out with cap money, and they don't have it this year, and next year they hope to get themselves out from under, but they can do that because they traded Carson Wentz. And if they didn't think that he was going to be good enough, especially for that money, good enough meaning get to the Super Bowl, they wouldn't have gotten to the Super Bowl without him, even though he got hurt. He still got hurt after 13 games, and they were 11-2. They want to see about Jalen Hurts. And if Jalen Hurts isn't good enough, if you get the right picks, they'll have probably 3 first-round picks, assuming that Wentz plays 70% of the snaps. They'll have a chance to get another quarterback. So in the world today, once Kansas City gets to paying Patrick Mahomes that big money, I don't think they've got a shot. I don't think they've got a shot, because they almost have to be perfect in the draft.
You're dead on, and that's kind of what happened to Baltimore under Flacco. You know, they gave him all that money. They had to jettison Anquan Bolden and all them dudes on the defensive side of the ball. But I think one thing that Kansas City has done, if you already noticed too, Howard, in January, they already had a restructure of that $500 million contract. I do think the one thing that they've put as kind of fail safes and a team friendly deal, they've given them off ramps where they can restructure the contract, because Brady's showing you're dead on. You pay a guy $50 million, unless you have restructuring mechanisms inside those contracts where the quarterback, if you feel comfortable, he's your guy, where you feel okay giving those brand new signing bonuses to. And how many guys in the league do you feel that comfortable giving a signing bonus every year when you're going to restructure? You've got to have a lot of faith that that guy's your guy. And I think finding that guy like a Mahomes or a Brady, man, that's really like shooting in the dark there, trying to find that needle in the haystack.
Right. That's why, the more I think about the Green Bay situation, I know they didn't really want to trade Aaron Rodgers, because then this year is kind of a wash. But you can't, and then they only have to keep him for 1 year anyway. So, because they can get out of that contract, but you can't win with that kind of money. Where you can't pay the players that you need to play, pay. But now it's really a catch-22. It's an awful situation for the NFL teams, because the quarterback money has gotten so ridiculous, so out of control. And everybody says, well, Brady took less money. Well, yeah, he did, but he got it. He got his money somewhere. And the other thing, and it was a story in the Boston Globe, so don't feel sorry for Tom Brady. His massage company that he has ownership in, I don't know how large the ownership, but it's good enough that he's getting a lot of money, was the massage company for the New England Patriots. He got millions of dollars a year through that company with the massage company. And the Boston Globe pointed out one time, Brady, they didn't send a check. There was a couple of $1 million they owed. Brady actually, called up Robert Kraft. Hey, listen, we didn't get the check yet. So he's worried about the money. He's paid him how much money over 20 years? I mean, stop.
But, Howard, I want to throw something else at you too here.
By the way, that's beating the salary cap. Another way that the New England Patriots under Bill Belichick continue to cheat.
Let me throw this. I love that, by the way. Let me throw this at you too here on what Frank Reich said. I asked Frank, was Carson your number one target? He went like this. He was our number one target immediately. Now, Howard, that makes me think early in the process, and tell me if I'm wrong. And again, I couldn't believe Frank was saying these things. He goes, we identified this as soon as we talked to Phillip Rivers. He was retiring, and that was early. That was like 3 weeks after the regular season. They said that the number one target was Carson Wentz. Well, 3 weeks after the season, that meant to me, tell me if I'm wrong, that Jeffrey Luria and Howie Roseman had already determined that Wentz was not going to be on that football team no matter what. And in that process, all of a sudden, then they might have said, okay, how did the Nick Sirianni conversation spark up? And in the middle of that whole thing, Frank's telling me, then they called me about the head coach. So in the process of trading Wentz, they got convinced on Nick Sirianni during the Carson Wentz hiring. It's all on this interview. I was stunned. And get this, they determined in that process of hiring Wentz to fire Doug Pederson.
Well, I will. Doug was probably on shaky ground, which is amazing. 3 years after a Super Bowl, I think it's only happened one other time, and I think George Seifert was the guy, but he was retiring anyway. And so it's really never happened before. But the problem there is Doug was tired of other people dictating his coaches, other people dictating his 53-man roster for Sunday afternoons, and which coaches, no, you can't keep this guy, you can't keep this guy. Doug Pederson went in to that last interview or meeting, I'll say it was an interview, meeting with Jeffrey Lurie, and knew if he wanted to stay strong on two of the coaches, Dave Phipp, his special teams coach, and Press Taylor, who was his quarterback, kind of offensive coordinator coach, and they didn't want those guys. And he knew by saying, I want these guys that he was going to be fired. So he basically fired himself, and he's got 2 years left on his contract. So he kind of fired himself, but it was kind of shaky. I don't know what if he would have fired those guys. I think they would have kept him. But it's just it really is kind of an interesting situation that Sirianni got in there. But I don't think they were totally happy with Josh McDaniel. Matter of fact, I know they weren't totally happy. There was a division on who liked him, and he was one of the people interviewed. Deuce Staley, it's kind of sad that they didn't really give him – they gave him a lot of interviews, but he's been interviewed so many times, he really didn't have a shot, and that's why he had to leave. And the other coaches, there was so many of them that they ran through there. It's just like, how many coaches do you have to interview? And when Frank – and I didn't speak to Frank, but he sent me a text. He loved Sirianni. And he's a personable guy, and he's animated, and he's got energy. And in the interview process, they really liked what he did in the interview. So if Frank helped facilitate that, it worked because they were really impressed with him in the interview. Now, whether that means he's going to be a good coach, we don't know until we see him go there. Everything's great now until you coach and you're in a tight game. And the first year, I just don't think it's going to be a great year for the Eagles. And I'm saying great, but I don't think they're going to be – you can't be 500 unless you have a tie. It's because of this odd game. But I don't think they're going to reach that level. I'd be shocked if they had – I wouldn't be shocked. I would be surprised if they had 8 wins. But they're not going to get 9. It's just that kind of team. There's too many question marks. So we'll see how good Nick Sirianni is in that. But he's got a ton of energy. He's had some good news conferences with the media here. It's all on Zoom. As we know, it's all on Zoom. He's had some good ones. And then he had a real bad one, the first one. But he seems like he's got a lot of energy and he's excited. And the players like that. Change is important in the pursuit of success. And I've always believed that. And sometimes you got to change things up. And if it doesn't work, you're just going to get now because, and I don't know what Nick Sirianni's getting his salary, but I know there's a lot of coaches that were hired this year that were young guys that weren't making even close to what the big guys were making. You'd figure a coach would get 6 or 7 million because there's guys making 8 to 10 million. These guys now are getting 3.5 million. So if you fire them after 3 years, what's the big deal? You're already ahead of the game. So that's not a big deal. It's like, okay, he's out, he's in. We'll just go get somebody else. I think they're looking at quarterbacks. If Jalen Hurts is not good enough, they'll just go out and get somebody else, and they'll just try to keep on. And eventually, you may hit on somebody. It's hard. Quarterbacks are hard unless you get really at the top of the draft. And then there's no guarantees for Trevor Lawrence. There's no guarantees for Zach Wilson. There's none of guarantees for anybody. So you just move on. It's like Devonta Smith. I think he's going to be a real exciting wide receiver for the Eagles, but he's so small. After 3 years, I don't know if he's going to be beat up. But, the way they look at it, well, so what? It's before he gets into a second contract. We'll just go out and get somebody else. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but you worry about him at 165 pounds in the NFL. So they just move on. That's just what it is. That's sports everywhere. I mean, that's everywhere. So you just don't pay the guys as much. And you just get another guy.
Sure.
But Nick Sirianni is I'm told by the people in the building, and I have not met him yet. And, I hear him on Zoom and you talk to him on Zoom, but that's not the same thing. But the people at the Eagles facility tell me he is really, really a great guy. But he's got to be a good coach, too.
Two last questions for you, Howard. Jalen Hurts here. Here's why I like him. And tell me if you subscribe to this. I mean, I saw a great teammate with Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama. He's in that system. He wins. Nick Saban swears that this guy's one of the best players and teammates he's ever been around. He goes to another system completely different from the Alabama Sarkisian system to the Lincoln Riley system. Players embrace him. I think Brady's greatest asset is he's one of the best teammates you could possibly have in a locker room. He embraces everybody. It just seems that players gravitate to this kid, and that means there's a command in the locker room. There's a trust in the locker room. I'm not saying that this kid's going to go out there and be Kyler Murray or he's going to go out there and be Donovan McNabb, but it has to start with a presence. There seems to be, and I don't know if he's going to be a great quarterback like you say, but it just seems to me that he has a presence about himself that the organization felt comfortable moving up first to trade him or to draft him in the second round and to kind of throw him the keys and to go out instead of drafting a quarterback right there at that spot. They went out and got him a weapon that he was familiar with. Remember, this is familiarity too. Devonta Smith, Alabama, Alabama at first. I mean, how do you look at Jalen Hurts?
Okay, he obviously does have a presence with other players, and they really do like him, and he's got a personality that they kind of they have obviously embraced. And when he came in, it was change, and there was an excitement. But out of the 4 games he started, only 2 of them were good, not great, but good. And 2 of the others, he just didn't really have good numbers. He wasn't good at making all of his reads, but that comes with experience. So we'll see, because that's where you have to do it. You have to do it on the field. The only thing, and that's not really a negative. That's just a young quarterback.
Yeah, correct.
The only thing that I kind of wonder about, why did he not want to battle it out with Tua? And he decided to leave Alabama. He didn't want to battle it out.
Agreed.
He gave up and he went to Oklahoma. So, I don't think Tua's really I don't think he's going to be a quarterback in the NFL. So why did you give up? If you're that good and you're that good and you're at Alabama and you have a better chance to win a national championship there than at Oklahoma, as good as Oklahoma is, you have a better chance there. Why didn't you stay there? That's the only question I have. And unfortunately, you really can't get into that on Zoom conferences because you have a limited time and you can't. You want to find out why he didn't take that and grab it by the horns. And apparently he wasn't happy with if Carson Wentz was going to be here. He wasn't happy with that. And he wasn't happy when he was taken out of the game against Washington. Now, if that game wasn't on national TV, nobody would have even talked about it. Oh, the Eagles dumped the game. And then the Giants are pissed because, oh, my gosh, they cost us the division. Well, you cost yourself division by winning, 7 games? How many games did they win? 6 or 7 games? Come on, bro. Play 500, and then you can at least have a little bit of an argument. So just shut the bleep up. Another Bill Belichick fraud that comes out of that system in Joe Judge. And I think he's a fraud because I think there's never been a Bill Belichick assistant that's had tremendous success in the NFL. Bill O'Brien's the only one, short time, but you can't really call what he did success. So whatever the case, Joe Judge is whining. But what he wanted to do, Doug Pederson wanted to give Nate Sudfeld a chance to put something on tape, which was bad, and put something on tape so he could get another job or help get him another job. And Jalen Hurts, they were losing the game when he was taken out of the game. Now, and he planned it pretty much all week. If he had done it at halftime, maybe people wouldn't have complained. But the reality is, I still have to see Jalen Hurts be a better quarterback. And that's what athletically he's great, but you can't run in the NFL and that's what your primary weapon is, because you're going to get crushed. And it's not the way you win. It's easier to make 3rd and 9 with a pass than it is with a run when you really break it down. So we'll see how that works out. I don't know. Everybody in town's excited about him, but there's going to be some tough patches for him and tough spots, I'm sure. And there's going to be times he's going to hear the Philadelphia fans, and now his fans back in the stands. He's going to hear him boo if he doesn't do well. And he's going to call it, he has a term which Nick Saban's used called rat poison. I don't listen to all the rat poison. I'll tell you what, he's got a cliche. This is what it's interesting to listen to him, because players all say the same thing after games and before. It's all the same thing at news conference. It's they're programmed to say what the PR people tell them to do. But he's always got a phrase. He says, I want to be like a coffee bean and be able to A coffee bean. I'm trying to figure out what that is, and it's just it mixes together with a lot of other good things. That's his analogy of being a coffee bean. So he's going to have those, and it's going to be like, what did he just say? But that's all right. At least this gives us something to talk about. But success, it all comes down to W's and L's. And the first year, I think he'll get a pass, but there'll be games. These fans don't put up with a lot. They're impatient. And now they see the schedule, and some of these idiots out here now on radio after the schedule came out. Oh, the Eagles are going to win 12 games. Are you on drugs? They're not going to win 12 games. It's just, and you know what? I want success because it's more fun, standing there on the sidelines. I was there for years when it's a blowout, and I said to the Eagles person next to me, I says, can we start the bus and get the hell out of here?
Hey, final question for you. Devonta Smith, I had a conversation with Cornelius Bennett yesterday about his thoughts on him having success at 165. He said, Dan, back in the day, when we were in the league, you could mug these guys on the line of scrimmage. These guys, the receivers back then weren't chirping, Howard, like they do today, because you can't hit these guys today. Those corners and those free safeties would knock the bleep out of you if you opened your pie hole. And you knew that was their territory, the linebackers and the strong safety. Today, the game is so much wider open in the middle of the field. Do you think that's the reason why he has more success than, say, back in the day, like when Jerry Rice and those guys played? Because it's a different league today.
Well, you can't touch him anymore. That's the problem. You can't, call it holding, call it whatever you want. You can't touch him anymore. So that certainly gives players an advantage. But I don't know that he's going to go into the center of the field after the first time he gets hit. He will show me something. If he's back there again, catching a ball over the middle, because somebody, they'll risk, nobody wants a fine. But if you're playing within the structure of the game and the guy's so little, he's going to go down. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but it is a different game. There's more space. You can't touch the guys. It's hard with Devonta Smith to press cover him because he's so quick off the line of scrimmage. And if you doubt, the Eagles need another. They have to have Jalen Reagor, last year's first-round draft pick, and step up, because if you have somebody else, then it's going to be hard to double him. It'll be interesting to see what he has when he takes. He's going to get hit somewhere along the way over the middle, but he's so fast. You got to catch up with him first. It's going to be hard to see, but the Eagles quarterback has to have time. So if he doesn't have time, it doesn't make any difference. You got to have time. And the Eagles' offensive line is interesting. There's a couple of guys coming back from injuries. There's some questions on the other part. Jason Kelce is in probably his last year, and he's a tremendous player. And they will really miss him when he retires. But you got to give him time. You give him time, and then you can get the ball to Devonta Smith. Everybody's looking forward to that. But they're not going to win every game. And they're not going to win 12. If they win 12 games, I'll run down the main street here in my underwear. And I'm hoping for it. Because I lost like 30 pounds, so now I'm a sex symbol, so I can run down.
Hey, Howard, before you go, I want to congratulate you. I tell my daughter's asking me now, how to get into broadcasting. My friend Mike Golick got his kid into broadcasting, and, he's doing very well. It's always awesome. Phil Simms, too, we had on the other day, got his kid into broadcasting. You must be so proud, man. I mean, not only the job that he's been promoted to, but the job coming, out of Andy Bloom, and the job that he did by elevating the WIP to get that job at WFAN. You must be just so proud.
Yeah, he's a really sharp. He's not a kid anymore. He's a really sharp guy. He really understands the things that need to be done. He did it. He did it by himself. I didn't ask him or tell him or suggest to him to go into broadcasting. He was on the air. He was a disc jockey. He did a lot of different things with music. I call it disc jockey. That's the old term. He was music. He was a lot of things. And then when he came to WIP, he knew. I mean, he knew what needed to be done. But to get the job at a station in New York, WFAN, that's a big job, and he'll be great. I'm sure he'll be great. But he did a lot of it on himself. You know, at the beginning, you help him. All right, you help him when he was coming back to Philadelphia. They didn't want to pay him what he paid him, so I talked to the general manager. I said, just give him a little more money and he'll come here. And it really wasn't about, but he had principles, and then it worked out well for every one of them. But his boss in New York called me and told me he interviewed a lot of people. There was a lot of good candidates, and he got the job. So yeah, it's nice to see him really succeed. All my kids are doing well. My daughter just got a new job. She works in the music business in Los Angeles. She went to Syracuse. She was a music major. I have a son that's got 2 management positions with Disney, and 20th Century Fox does movies. So he's doing well. Another son is at IT for Comcast, which is obviously a big company, and he's doing really well. So they're all doing well. So, and my daughter is has a really good job at an advertising agency in New York. So they're kind of intertwined a little bit in the business, but I let them do whatever they wanted to do. And maybe because of what I did, there was some influence, but whatever it was, I guess it worked. And
the 60-year-old dad's going to be running down Broad Street in his underwear if they're 12-5. If they're 12-5.
Yeah. If they come down to the last game and they have 11 wins, I'm going to sabotage the bench.
Thank you, Howard.
All right, Dan, anytime.
You got it. Howard Eskin there. Fantastic stuff. We'll take a brief time out. You keep it right here on the National Football.
See the schedule, and some of these idiots out here now on radio after the schedule came out. Oh, the Eagles are going to win 12 games. Are you on drugs? They're not going to win 12 games.